Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. I'm your running host, Dean Thompson. You know, we've heard people tell us to think big, but today's story tells us to think small. And it's far better than you're thinking. And I share the harrowing story of what happens when you change the side of the road you drive on overnight. And joining me for those stories and so much more, once again, it is Run for God founder, Mitchell Hollis.
Thanks for having me, Dean. How's your week been?
It's been a good, busy week.
Yeah.
I had one of the men that I admire as much as anybody I know.
Right.
He's retiring. And so we went to his retirement last night, and I don't know. There's just something about that man that he's just a good guy.
I've met him several times. Yeah, he's a Run for God alum.
He is.
Actually, he was
he's in the run
Mayberry race.
Yeah, he was in the Mayberry race. Yep.
Yeah.
He and his wife are faithful.
Yeah.
Run for God folks.
Yeah.
And so it was a good way to finish the weekend.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Good.
And my grandson's playing basketball now, so we're going to basketball games. So that's always fun.
Yeah.
Yelling at the referees and stuff, you know.
Yeah. I'll never forget Landon played basketball. And, Landon's our builder. He's the curious mind, always wondering how things work, all that kind of stuff. Well, Landon was in a basketball game, and I have this picture of him. He is in the game. He's not on the sideline. He is one of the five that's supposed to be out on the court. And he's over looking up at a roll-up door on the side of the gym. And everybody's screaming at him, Landon, get back in the game. And afterwards I said, Landon, what were you doing? He said, I was trying to figure out how that roll-up door works. He said, I've never seen one of those. He was like probably 7 or 8 maybe.
That's so Landon.
Yeah. So, we had our basketball days.
Well, do you miss the Foot Locker days? Foot Locker was just this past weekend.
Yeah, I saw the pictures this weekend. I do. Yeah, I mean, a lot of those things we used to do, every single year.
Yeah.
When the kids were younger, when we were coaching the triathlon team. I still talk to some of the parents every now and then, and it's like, those were pretty special days.
Yep.
A big group of people, all doing things. Of course, I'm sure some parents experience this with travel ball and things like that, but travel sports gets a bad rap sometimes, but there's some pretty special bonds that are formed with those.
That is absolutely true.
A lot of friendships of course, there can be a lot of drama, I will admit. But all in all, I do miss those days.
I ran into one of the parents yesterday, and he was talking about Jacob. Yeah. And he's in college at the University of Georgia, and he's a Zell Miller Scholar guy, so he's a great student. Yeah. And trying to hold on to that scholarship.
Yeah.
And but he's been
it's so funny. You talk about telling your age.
Yeah.
We've got several of these kids that we've coached are married, have kids now, and where does time go, Dean? Where does time go?
It's all good.
All right, so we're going to talk about this week's sponsor. It's our good friends over at Trinity Disposal. They are the go-to disposable company for Whitfield and surrounding counties. Trinity offers weekly residential trash collection and commercial front-end dumpsters. Trinity is very detail-oriented. It has an excellent customer service reputation. So if you're interested in a top-of-the-line disposal company in the North Georgia area, give Hunter and Trinity Disposal a call today. Just great people. Give them a call if you live in this area.
Absolutely. Well, our Facebook post from last week. Now, I hope I don't murder her name, but Shonda Foublasse is the way I'm going to say it. And I would hate to mess up her name. Just she's such a joy.
Yeah,
isn't she? So she says this. She says, "Hello, my Run for God family. Imagine scrolling down your news feed and seeing yourself on a Run for God ad. I was just telling a friend a couple of days ago that I needed to start training again, so this feels serendipitous. I remember the sheer joy and amazement that I felt when this picture was taken as I crossed the line of the half marathon back in January. For those who have been training this year, keep going. Your hard work and dedication are going to be so worth it. For those who hit some stumbling blocks along the way and maybe gave up on yourselves or had to stop or slow down for other reasons, it's never too late to start again. You can do it. One foot in front of the other is the key. I'm so proud of you.
She's not only on the ad, she's on the homepage of the website right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
She is.
Yeah,
but that's such a great picture.
Oh, man. It doesn't fully capture because we were there. Yeah. I mean, we know how excited she was, but that picture just about captures it.
It does a pretty good job.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the way the picture captures the joy and the triumph of it, but it also, you can see the pain in it as well. And so you can see how hard she worked for it.
Well, and what's funny is with this post, she posted a picture of that ad, but she also posted a picture of the video where I guess one of her family members was kind of interviewing her as soon as she got done, and you can just hear the joy and the tears coming through. I mean, she was so excited.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for all of you out there, we're in the thick of Couch to Marathon promoting right now for 2024, 2025.
Yeah.
If you don't think you can do it, Shonda is saying, yes, you can.
Yes.
I mean, she is the picture of what excites us.
That's right.
Really. I mean, we take somebody who I say we take somebody. We don't actually do anything. We sit up here and talk and give information. But these people, Shonda did it. We didn't do it. Shonda did it. But we love to have the front row seat to watch stories like her. And she's just one of hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
That's been in the same boat as her. And so if you're out there and you're listening, you've seen the ads, maybe you're tuning in to us for the first time, you're seeing all this Couch to Marathon stuff, Couch to 5K. Yes, you can. I know that doubt is the number one thing that keeps people from doing it. It's fear. There's nothing to fear. But there's a finish line experience like Shonda had waiting on you.
That is right. Yeah. Amen. Well, she talks about setbacks, and setbacks are normal. I think a lot of times, I don't know why we look at running, walking, our exercise different than we do other things, but if you're going to be a runner, or really in anything that you do, you're going to have snags in that process. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about parents. Is there any parent out there who never had any snags or any problems in raising their kids?
My kids would tell you yes, but I would tell you
no. Nobody does that, right? So apply that to anything, and you're going to find interruptions along the way. So why would we think that running, walking, exercise, why would we think it would be any different? But we have people that they quit so quickly. Mm-hmm. After they get one snag and boom, they're done. And man, you all you can do is just do what you can until you can get through it. Sometimes that means taking some time off. Sometimes that means cutting back a little bit. Mm-hmm. Whatever it has to be. But I remember when the last time that I wasn't running, I had to take 3 months off. And I had a stress fracture in my femur. And I remember I couldn't wait to get back. And as soon as that third month, the doctor told me 3 months. Mm-hmm. Well, on the third month and one day, I was out running.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Isn't that what they say?
That's right. That's right. So now let me say this. That first run, was it hard? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But it probably felt so good,
It was
too.
crazy
At the
hard.
same time, it felt so good.
Of course, I had gained 20 pounds, so that made it extra hard, too. But totally worth it. So don't get frustrated with setbacks. They're going to happen.
Sure.
We had a trivia question from last week. It was this: Northern Arizona's 6 titles in cross country only rank them 4th on the all-time list of the most cross-country titles. What men's team has won the most titles? Did you think it was going to be Oregon?
Yeah.
I think that kind of comes to mind for everybody. Of course, Oregon is number 1 in individual titles. They have had more individual titles than anybody else. They've had 8 of those. But team titles, they're actually tied with Northern Arizona for 4th. But they get tons of press, obviously, because of Steve Prefontaine and
Right.
Nike and that kind of thing. But the Arkansas Razorbacks, they won 11 championships between 1985 and 2000. I mean, that is a dynasty, right? They were at least as much of a dynasty as Northern Arizona has been. Now, individually, they've only won 3. So individually, they don't usually have that guy that's fantastic and beating everybody, but they're team wise, they've been really, really good, or were at that time. So I think Michigan State is second. They've won 8, and their last one was way back in 1959. So they were good way back in the 50s. And then UTEP is third. University of Texas El Paso, kind of the same thing. They were a dynasty before Arkansas. So between 69 and 81, they won 7 times. So that's cross country seems to be this. We go from one dynasty to another. It seems, which is it's cool.
It's kind of like a lot of sports seem to do that.
They do.
You have your runs, and we won't even get into college football this morning, but
that's probably a bad idea. Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, what I thought was fascinating here too was that when you look at these teams that have won multiple championships, typically there's not very much space between them. There's a year or two, and not much more than that. The one that has the biggest gap from their first one to their most recent one happens to be Oklahoma State, who was the one that won this year. They won their first one way back in 1954. There was only, and I can't remember who it was, there was only one other team that had more of a gap than like 20 years. So typically they get to the top.
Why do you think that is? You think it's just coaching, culture, a string of athletes that come through, kind of a mixture of all that?
I think it's coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, and coaching is more than just the act of coaching. It's the recruiting and everything else that goes with it, and the culture that they bring along with it. But yeah, I think it's coaching. When you look at Arkansas, their coach retired here not long ago, and I think that was it was him. So anyway, it's pretty cool to see. On the women's side, Villanova is the team that has won the most championships. They won 9 titles between 1989 and 2010. They also have 9 individual titles, which is the most for either men or women. So Villanova is the women's team. Now, NC State has won 3 in a row. So that's going to be interesting to see if they can keep that streak going next year. Northern Arizona, man, they gave them a run for their money this year. 1 point difference. So
wow.
Yep. But I love cross country. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go to a cross country race this weekend.
Now, where is it this year?
Tallahassee.
So this is the race you run every year. It's the Masters National Championship.
Yep. It's a club.
Right. So you're going with the Chattanooga
Track Club. Yeah. And we'll be in Tallahassee, Florida. Again, we were there 2 years ago. We're back there this year. So I love that course. I say I love it. The course the course looks like it's not too difficult, but I never run fast there. So it must be more difficult than it looks like. And it seems like nobody really runs all that fast there. So except the NCAA guys, for some reason, they can run crazy fast there. It's because their feet hardly ever touch the ground.
Upward Sports equips churches to run self-sustaining sports ministries in their communities. Whether you're a sports fanatic or on staff at a church, Upward Sports will give you all the tools you need to run a first-class sports ministry that allows you to reach families in your community. Upward Sports offers basketball, soccer, flag football, cheerleading, volleyball, baseball, and softball through league and camp offerings. At Upward Sports, we want to help your church make a difference and give you increased opportunities to share the gospel. Learn more today at upward.org. That's upward.org.
All right, we're back. On Thursday nights we do this live thing, and it's kind of fun. And so if you're not tuning in for that, you need to. Now we've had a snag in the Thursday night stuff the last couple of weeks, and so I'm not sure what we're going to do going forward. but we're still doing them. Mm-hmm. We're not missing them, but I'm having to do them a whole different way than we've done them in the past. So it's all good, and all that. I mean, this past week we talked about long runs and how to do our long runs and what we get out of our long runs and that kind of thing. And sometimes it's something more biblically focused. Right. So, but tune in on Thursday nights if you're not doing it. All right, you're not big on socks, are you? You're kind of like me. You're not a big sock guy.
Well, it's funny you asked this question because my boys are getting a big kick out of, I've always wore the same socks. Mm-hmm. The Nike Dry Fit. It's just a sock I've always wore. They're cheap when you buy them in, the big 6-8 packs. Mm-hmm. You can get them at like Dick's or Hibbett or wherever, and they're just it's a good sock, cheap for the money. But they've always had them, and I always get the ankle version and then the tube socks, and I get a pack of black and white in both versions. So when I go into the store, I buy 8 or 10 packs. I'm the guy that I go buy all my underwear and all my socks for the year, and then I throw them all away at the end of the year, and I go buy new. It's new sock day. But this last time I went, I spent more money than I normally would because the same sock they have in all the different colors now, which is kind of the style, I guess. Yeah. So I bought all these different colors. So now in the evenings, I'll wear the tube socks at night when I'm walking around the house. So I'll pull them up, way over my calves, and it's all these funny colors, and so they're all just getting. So I guess I never have been, but the plain Jane sock that I've always wore, and now has some
flair to it.
Yeah, and everybody's getting a kick out of it. So
that's funny. Well, I thought about it because as we were in Mayberry, downtown Mayberry, there is a sock outlet. It's the Renfro sock outlet, and apparently Renfro is a kind of a pioneer in the sock business. Apparently, they're the company that first came up with the whole idea of standardized sizes for socks. They also are, according to their website, the ones that pioneered the seamless toe. So that's a pretty cool thing. But they gave away at Mayberry. They gave away socks to everybody. I got a pair that have Zion National Park on them, which is pretty cool because I've been there, and so that's a cool thing. But if you're ever in Mayberry, Mount Airy, North Carolina, this place is downtown, and they've got these Swiftwick nice socks, cheap,
really?
Yeah, dirt cheap. So it's a great place. It's a true outlet, right? They were founded in 1921, been around for a long time. So, and a lot of runners like the Swift. I don't care for the Swiftwick socks as far as running goes, just because they're just too thin for me.
Yeah,
I like kind of something that's kind of a medium thickness. Some people like thin ones. Some people like thick socks. But the bottom line is, you need socks that are comfortable.
Sure.
And that can be those $15 a pair socks, or I pay $3 a pair for my socks. I buy them the way you buy them. I buy them in bulk, and that's what I like. They fit on my feet. They feel good. It doesn't matter. I don't need to spend $10 a pair for socks.
You're like me. We find something we like, find something that works, and we just don't change it.
I just keep buying them. Yeah. Now I'm different than you. I don't throw them all away at once. So.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I don't like when you buy new ones and they get mixed in with the old ones.
Yeah.
And then you're wearing one new one and one that's maybe 6 months old. You can tell the difference.
But see, I don't do that. When I put my socks together, I don't do that. I put them together purposefully.
So as OCD as I am, and as OCD as you're not, you're OCD on this.
I am.
And I'm not.
Yes.
Of course, I will admit, because I know my wife is probably listening, I don't do the laundry as much as my wife. But I do it some.
Well, what we do, Debbie does the laundry.
Yeah.
And then she brings it out. She brings all of my clothes in one basket, all of her clothes in another basket. I fold mine, she folds hers. It's just the way we do stuff.
Yeah.
And so I put my socks together.
You're giving Holly too many ideas right now.
Oh, sorry, Holly. I'm sorry, man. Anyway, if you have blister issues, you might try a different sock. Socks can make a difference in the way your shoes fit. So there's some people who like thin or thick socks, and you really have to choose as far as your running socks go, because a really thick sock and a really thin sock, you'd have to wear a different size shoe.
Sure. Well, that's the reason. That is the reason I stick with the same sock, is because it's the right thickness that I like. That Nike Dry Fit.
Yep.
It's some would argue it's probably not the best sock, but for me it is. So
yeah,
there's what you have to pay attention to in shoes and so many other things in the sport. Is 10 people may say it's the wrong sock, but I say it's the right sock. So it's the right sock for me. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, how about another story from Jerry Snider? As usual, this one has a funny title. We're usually told to think big.
Where does Jerry live?
Jerry has a different take.
Do we know where he lives?
Is he in Ohio?
We've got to get him here.
I know we do.
Jerry, if you're listening, try to get a date on your calendar where you can come see us.
Amen. Well, yeah, it'd be great. This one's called Think Like a Mosquito. Remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be curious, and however difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed. That's Stephen Hawking, the theoretical physicist. Once upon a time, I heard a motivational speaker ask his audience if anyone had ever been bitten by an elephant. No hands went up. Next, he asked if anyone had ever been bitten by a mosquito. Everyone raised their hand. The point he was making is little things make a big difference. For example, it only takes a few seconds to double knot the laces on your running shoes before a race. This could mean the difference between first place, second place, or even an ugly stumble on the road. And how about those magic words, please and thank you? These are little things that never go out of style. So be kind to the bank teller, the supermarket cashier, the clerk at the dry cleaner, and all folks at all stops in between. This little gesture will make it a better day for you and them. How about a smile? Long ago, someone gave me this advice. If you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours. Once again, a little thing that can make a big difference in your life as well as the person you're smiling at. Over the years, I've enjoyed several classes in comedy writing. I think the most helpful advice I received was, be a little interested in everything. And when exploring something for the first time, ask, what's funny about this? I'm not a fan of major sports like football, basketball, or baseball, but I do from time to time enjoy reading a biography of a star player and learning something from their climb to the top. And with a great sense of patriotism, I'll watch the Army-Navy football game. There is something special about a little thing called curiosity. And you just never know when this little thing can lead you to something big. Walt Disney, creator of Mickey Mouse, said, "We keep moving forward, doing new things, because we're curious, and curiosity keeps us leading down new paths." Here are a few suggestions for exercising your curiosity muscles this week. Take a different route to work. Listen to a different radio station. Try a different topping on your pizza. Seek out a new restaurant. Wear your underwear on the outside of your pants. This is sure to be a conversation starter with strangers. Shop at a different grocery store. If you've never taken dance lessons, sign up for one. Visit a music store, buy an instrument, and learn how to play it. Have some fun. Expand your horizons. I agree with Albert Einstein, who said, "The mind that opens to a new idea never returns to its original size."
Oh, I'm just sitting here. Curiosity's killing me. I wonder if Jerry has ever actually wore his underwear on the outside of his pants. Because he's pulling that as a reference from somewhere.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Oh, I love that guy.
He's so funny. Oh my goodness. Yeah, trying not new things rather is not a big problem for you and I. I think we're always willing to try something new and different and kind of put ourselves out there a little bit. But so many people, they're so timid about trying something new. And it's funny. There's some things though I don't care about trying something new, like food. I mean, I will try new things, but I don't care.
Right.
You know, I've always said I look at it like putting gas in your fuel in your car. Just pull up to the gas station. I just need to shovel some food in there and move on to the next.
Yeah,
thing.
we couldn't be more different in that aspect.
I know.
I love.
I know.
I'm a foodie. I like trying different things, making different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love a sentiment here. Take a different route to work. You know, I do that every now and then.
Yeah.
My wife calls me. You know, I'm many years older than I am in this aspect, in that I just like going out riding around. She calls me Grandpa.
Yeah.
Because whether it's in the evening or something, I just like getting out, going and riding around, and doing the drop in. And this is where Holly just she doesn't like it, but just dropping in on people.
Yeah.
And I don't know, something about that. I guess I'm.
Yeah, you're not worried about what people think when you drop in, and she is.
But they're not thinking what she thinks they're thinking.
Right.
Because we've done it. I've called her out on this before. When somebody dropped by our house, she was like, "Oh, that was so nice to see them." And I'm like, "Oh, I was so mad that they dropped by." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "I actually wasn't." But that's what she thinks. That's what people think when you just drop by. In the old days, that's all anybody did.
That's right.
You didn't have cell phones and text messages and all this stuff. You just dropped in, and so I'm a fan of the drop in.
Yeah. Well, I like it from a running standpoint. I love to do different workouts. I like to run in different places, and I'll take a side street just for the fun of it.
Sure.
Just to go see what's down there. And I think that's great. But back to the idea of little things making a big difference. One of the things that I'm having trouble with, I've had this injury that I've been talking about for actually months, I guess. But one of my problems is my piriformis muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your piriformis muscle is this little tiny muscle, and it's in the middle of your rear end, and you got all these big muscles around it, but the little tiny piriformis muscle can cause terrible, terrible pain and problems. And part of the problem is that its location is right next to the sciatic nerve. So if it gets inflamed, sometimes it presses on your sciatic nerve. But it's right back to that same thing he's talking about here. It's a tiny thing, can make a huge difference, right? I remember when I was in high school and I went for one run in one pair of worn out shoes, and I wound up with tendonitis in my knee because of one run. Little things can make a big difference.
Sure.
Luke 16:10 says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much."
When I read this verse, I always think about, we talk about Dave Ramsey on here quite a bit, but he talks about this with money, this idea that, people, he says money only magnifies who you are. So if you're a bad person with a little bit of money, you're just going to be a bad person with a lot of money.
Yeah.
If you're a good person with a little bit of money, you're going to be a very generous person with a lot of money. And I think that's what this scripture is talking about, is material things, wealth, possessions. That's not going to make you a better person. It's only going to magnify the person you are. He always says that, when people try to move and get away from a situation that may be toxic or things like that, he said, always remember, you go with you. And the point is, you got to change you first.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this verse is really digging at here.
I remember I was with a company that was part of Berkshire Hathaway at one time, and I remember what's his name? The guy from Berkshire Hathaway. Why is his name escaping me? Anyway, famous guy, one of the richest guys in the world.
I got his book over there.
Yeah, and he said that it takes a long time to build up your reputation, but it takes only one little bad
1 second
thing to destroy it, and that's kind of that, a little thing making a big difference. And when it comes to responsibilities, I think about spokespeople for companies.
Warren Buffett.
Sorry. Yeah, that's him. People are the reason why they're a spokesperson and why they command big dollars just to say a few words in a commercial is because they did well with this little thing. They got more and more responsibility, and they became famous for what they do. And now they're looked at. Their words carry more weight.
Sure.
It's why if I'm out somewhere and somebody will stop me and ask me running questions because they know me, and that's something that I've done a lot with a little, and I've gotten more and more. So anyway, it's an interesting thing. And Jerry talks about here. You can tell a lot about someone based on how they treat. When I see somebody treating a waitress or a checkout clerk, that gets all over me.
They're again. They're doing that in all of their life.
That's right.
Everything they do, they're doing that same thing. That same posture.
Yep, you can be sure. James 3:4. Look at the ships also. Though they are large and driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. Yeah, he's talking about the mouth, right? That our mouth it can do so much. You can think about, we've probably all been in that relationship that we ruined because of a word that we said, one sentence that we uttered, and we wish we could take it back and change it, but it's done.
Well, yeah, and you and I were talking right before this podcast, and I ran across a young man this past weekend that you and I coached, and what was it I used? I said he's a ball of just resentment. There's a lot going on in his life, but I think part of his problem is, as I sat and listened to this young man talk, he was just negative and negative and negative, and it becomes it becomes who he is. Yeah. And that's all driven. They say that, you listen to what the mouth says, including your own.
That's right.
If you're just constantly talking like that, it is going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's going to drive you down. But you can change your outlook simply by the way you talk.
That's right.
Yes, fake it till you make it, but that will happen. We talk about smiling when you're running. So that one act can make you feel better on a run. And so many people don't believe this, but it's true. If you're constantly talking down and down and down, it's going to bring you down.
Yep. And if you don't believe what you're saying, think about your own self when somebody said that kind word to you.
How did you feel?
Especially at a time when you didn't really deserve it and they did it anyway. Think about how that made you feel.
But the other thing is, it also made that person feel good.
Yeah, yeah.
You can be having a rotten day and be kind to somebody else, and it's going to make your day better.
That is a fact. Absolutely. Yep. It's, I've always been amazed at tech support people. You ever been on the phone with tech support? And I remember one incident in particular. I was mad. I was upset. I wanted to scream and holler at somebody. And so I called this company. And by the time I got off the phone, I'd purchased something more from them, because they knew how to take that and turn it around and be positive rather than negative. And they let me say what I was going to say, but they turned all of that around. And we can be that person, right? But I've also been on the phone with tech support where I just called them just to get some help or to answer a question or something. And by the time I get off, I'm biting nails. Because
you ran across this last week. You had somebody that very unsuspecting give you a compliment because of what was she? It was Apple.
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Because you sent it to us and you say, as many times as I talk about these big corporations and kind of their stances on things, here's a glimmer of hope. And what it showed me is that these big corporations, they're standing on ideals and principles that we don't necessarily agree with, but they're full of people just like you and I, and you just happen to run across one. Yep. And what was it she said? She complimented the verse of scripture on your or something.
She did.
Anyway, it was a sign that, man, this is a giant of a company, but there's some really good people in there.
Yep. And she's and obvious. Either she's a Christian or she faked it really good.
Right.
One or the other, but she made me feel like she was.
Or you spoke to her.
Yeah.
Just by, I think it's you've got a scripture on your signature line.
Yeah.
And there again, to Jerry's point, it's one of those little things.
Yeah.
Little things that made your day. You sent it to all of us and made our day, but it was just a little note that she put that made your day.
And you don't know that maybe she was having a bad day at that time.
Sure.
And maybe that verse of scripture was what she needed too, right? Yeah. Could be. Matthew 17:20. If you have faith like a grain of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. It makes me think about stories, where we've heard where someone goes through the 5K challenge or the Couch to Marathon, and all of a sudden they think they can do big things because they did a big thing, right? One little program like the 5K challenge can change the trajectory of somebody's life just by doing that thing.
Sure.
Yeah. To me, that grain of mustard seed is it's that first accomplishment, that leads to other accomplishments because you did that thing. And so now I think I can do bigger things. Right. Question. What little thing has made a big difference in your life? Well, running.
Yeah.
Running. I mean, running's really a little thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just a form of exercise. But look what it's done. Look what Run for God has done for so many people. I mean, we're on episode 194 right here. And in most of these episodes, we shared somebody's story.
Sure.
And so that's 194 stories where it has impacted somebody.
But it's even smaller than that. It's how we changed our perspective on running. At least for me, it's even smaller than just running. It's how we look at it. Where we put it in our life, and just that one little shift. I mean, you look at. You can draw it all the way back to HR. One little comment, 7 little words.
Yep.
Mitch, don't let this become your guys. Yeah. It's
just a little thing that changes everything. I always think about how
you really think about it. It's always something little.
It is. Yeah, because I think about my life and just in general, and I think about what if I change one decision in my life? And the one that I thought about was, what if I change what college I went to? Mm-hmm. If I change what college I went to, it changes where I go to work. It changes everything about my life. Mm-hmm. My life is completely different if one decision was made different. And I was really close to making a different decision when I was deciding what college to go to. And,
kind of makes you think of It's a Wonderful Life.
It does. It really does.
If you haven't seen It's a Wonderful Life, we're now a couple weeks before Christmas. That movie is what Jerry's talking about. It's the little bitty things.
Yep.
And it's an incredible movie. Sorry, didn't mean to get off on that.
No, that's great. I love that movie. I think it's my favorite Christmas movie.
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
And it's got to be the black and white version.
Does it?
You can't watch the color version.
I don't know if I've ever watched the colored version.
Yeah, they have. Where they digitally make it color, and it's kind of like watching the color Andy Griffith shows. It's not the same.
Well, what's interesting about I was talking about me choosing the college that I went to. Well, you know why I chose the college I went to, right? It was because of running.
Yeah, they paid you.
So just this little thing made me decide where I was going to go to college, right? Yeah. So that was how I made my decision, and it's changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Second question. What little thing you've done has made a big difference in someone else's life?
I was looking at this question, and this one's hard because many times you don't know.
Yeah.
Especially with the little things.
Yeah.
Unless you get that time. I'm thinking about a few texts that I've gotten through the years that, people said, hey, what you said really changed my day. Something you said, hey, thank you for coaching me through the years. And I guess the answer to his question here is I can tell you some instances, but I wouldn't have known about those instances had the people not told me. And this is another important point. We talk about saying thank you and all this to waiters and waitresses and whatever. But when people make an impact on you, so many times it's not that we don't want to. We just kind of let it go, and we're thankful, and we're like, tell that person.
Yeah.
Because I know the few times that I've gotten those texts or emails, man, that they stick out to me right now. I'm thinking of a couple that I'm not going to share, but they make a huge impact. It's confirmation that what we're doing is right.
Yeah. Because
so many times we wonder.
Yep.
If we're just being honest, we've been at times in this ministry where we're like, is this the right thing? And lo and behold, one of those texts or one of those emails will come through, and it's like, thank you for reaching back out.
Yeah, and we've all had that. We've all had that occasion where somebody did or said something to us that made a big impact on our life, and we haven't gone back and said anything.
Right.
So you've probably done the same thing to somebody else. Mm-hmm. I remember back years ago, I got a phone call from a friend of mine, somebody I had worked with for several years, and we had become fairly close in a working relationship, and we talked Bible and stuff a lot. And anyway, we were close. Well, he started running, so he calls me up one night. And just to get some running advice. I'm just getting started running. Tell me some things I need to know, that kind of thing. We talked for about an hour. And I didn't think anything more after that phone call. And then several years later, I got a phone call from him. And he said, I answered the phone. He said, I did it. I'm like, you did what? He said, I did it. He said, he ran 24 minutes for a 5K. Because in that first phone call, I said, here's a good goal for you down the road. And that drove him for years to do it. And he finally did it. And he called me the day that he did it and said, thank you for challenging me. And you never know. Now, he happened to be one of those guys who would reach back out and call. But you never know how many times something you said made a big impact with somebody because they didn't reach back out and tell you.
Sure.
So it's pretty cool. And I didn't even realize I had challenged. I wouldn't have known if somebody had asked me, did you challenge this guy to break 24 minutes in a 5K? I'd have been like, I might have. I don't know. Don't remember.
But he remembered.
Yeah. Again, small thing, right? Last question. What little thing are you curious about, and what are you going to do about it? I like the question.
It's an open-ended question here.
Yep. Well, I don't know. I have a tendency to go ahead and do the things I'm curious about. So, I don't know. One thing that came to mind was, I've got this Christmas story that I wrote several years ago, and I've always thought I want to do like a short film of that Christmas story, and I haven't done it. Maybe this year. Not before this Christmas, but maybe this winter. I should have some time to put that together. But I would love to do that. That's the thing that came to my mind. You got anything that comes to mind that you're curious about and would want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of done it vicariously through my youngest son, but I have a construction background, but I've always thought one day. Maybe it's probably going to be when I retire, doing a lot of woodworking, making that into something. And I'm kind of doing that vicariously through Landon right now. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's, the things you sit and daydream about, that's one of them. One of them is, how in the world did Florida State not get into the playoffs? I would love to have a clear answer on that. And I'm not even a Florida State fan. Yeah, how does the town of Cohutta, anytime they have an event here, seems like thousands of people show up and they do no advertising. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I'm curious about.
And it's a town of less than 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So they had right here in the Cohutta General Store. So if you've never been to Cohutta, you got to come to the Cohutta General Store. They had a little beauty pageant for kids this weekend. I wasn't here because they pushed all their furniture in here. But you were here. You said there was people lined outside in the streets trying to get in.
That's right.
And I didn't see. I saw some advertisements in the store here.
Yeah.
I didn't see it anywhere else advertised.
No.
And it's something about the center of the universe. It's kind of some kind of time warp here.
Must be it. Must be it.
So yeah, man, I just love Jerry's stories, and we do have to get him on here.
We do.
This is what, the 4th or 5th story he's submitted.
And we keep
now?
saying we need to get him on here, and then we don't do it. So I need to.
Well, Jerry, we're putting the ball in your court.
Yeah, come on.
You let us know when you can come. We'll be here.
Come on.
Do you struggle with motivation to exercise? Are you looking for something that will challenge you and inspire and motivate you? The Run for God Run Club is just what you need to get off the couch and on your way to a fitter, healthier you. Stop trying to get into better shape and do it with the help and inspiration of thousands of others who are going through the same challenges you face. Whether you are participating in the Couch to Marathon Challenge or any of our other challenges, or you're just looking for a daily pick-me-up to get active, join the Run for God Run Club today. You can join for as little as 27 cents a day. So what are you waiting for? Get started today at runforgod.com.
We are back, and there was an article written a few years ago. I think you may have seen it. It was written by Lauren Fleshman, and it was called "Dear Younger Me." Lauren Fleshman, and she was in her mid-30s, I think, at the time, and it was a great write-up. We've seen sometimes how younger girls, like middle school girls, they're really, really fast and really talented, and then they plateau or they even regress some. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that has to do with their body composition, their body makeup, and their maturity, and their hips change angles, and all these things that happen to their body. And a lot of times girls get really frustrated with that, and they give up. And this article was, hey, don't give up. If I knew, because she went through those frustrations, but she kind of stuck in there, but it was hard on her. Mm-hmm. And so she went back and said, what would I tell my younger self? And it was really, really well done. So I say all that to say this. She has written a book now. And so if you like that, I've not written the book. I don't know anything about the book. If there's something in the book that shouldn't be endorsed by us, then I don't know it. Right. So I'm not necessarily endorsing the book, but if you want to read about that, or if you have a young girl who is a runner and you're concerned, maybe this is a good resource. But Lauren Fleshman, she wrote a book. It's titled "Good for a Girl: My Life Running in a Man's World." And I like the way Lauren writes, because she doesn't. There's a lot of man bashing in the world these days. She doesn't do that. Right. She's just talking about the difference from, girls do have some unique challenges, and that here's how I deal with them and that kind of thing. So yeah, check that out. You can also go back. I think it's on Mile Split, the original article. If you wanted to read that, again, it's called "Dear Younger Me," Lauren Fleshman, and you can look at that. But here's the cool thing. She won this book award. It's a pretty prestigious book award. It's the William Hill Sports Book of the Year. And this is the first book written by a woman about women in sport that has won the award. And the award's been around for 35 years. Wow. So a pretty big deal. And she is a good writer, so I'm sure that's a good portion of the reason. But we've seen this firsthand with girls, right? Mm-hmm. If you pay any attention to cross country especially, sure, you've seen it. These girls who they're fantastic as middle schoolers, and you got these boys who are going the exact opposite direction, because boys at the age of 12, they're getting this big testosterone boost. All of a sudden their body is being flooded with these hormones that are making them faster, and girls are being flooded with hormones and changes that are not making them faster. Right. And it's just tough to deal with. So, again, this might be a good resource. So, sure. Now, I'm frankly skeptical anytime anything wins an award these days. So I don't makes me that's why I want to put the caveat in there about I don't know anything about this book, but if it's anything like the Mile Split article, it's probably pretty good. Sure. All right, it's time for Dean's Thoughts, and that's a time when I share something that I've written about the intersection between running and faith. What do you think would happen if we decided tomorrow in America to change to driving on the left side of the road?
That would be bad.
Pandemonium. This one's called Preconceived Notions. From 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. on September 3rd, 1967, no one was allowed to drive the streets of Sweden. The 1,976,248 registered vehicles sat idle for as long as it took to change all the signs on the roads. On September 2nd, 1967, Swedish law required cars to be driven on the left side of the road. But early the next morning, the law changed to require everyone to drive on the right side of the road. Can you even imagine the chaos? The emergency rooms were ready for the onslaught of people rushing through their doors that day. The auto body repair shops were salivating and feeling overwhelmed at the same time for all the business they were anticipating. The problem is, the accidents didn't happen as planned. The number of accidents actually went down. The introduction of anti-lock brakes promised to cut down the number of accidents when they were introduced. Of all the safety improvements introduced in the automotive industry, anti-lock brakes were probably as important as any of them. The insurance industry was excited for the decrease in accidents that was to come from the introduction of one of the most important safety features of all time. The problem is, the accidents did not decrease. Instead, they increased. A safety feature was added, and it became more unsafe to drive on the roads. What happened in these crazy cases? It's called risk homeostasis. So what is risk homeostasis? It's the theory that posits that people at any moment of time compare the amount of risk they perceive with their target level of risk and will adjust their behavior in an attempt to eliminate any discrepancies between the two. In other words, drivers became more careful when they switched sides of the road and less careful when they knew their brakes worked better. Preconceived notions can be a good thing. Like when you meet someone for the first time and their reputation is positive, you're more likely to see them as positive when you've heard stories about how nice they are. But more often, preconceived notions are a bad thing. When you dread your 6-mile run this afternoon because you know it's going to be hard, guess what happens? It will probably be hard. I have a crazy theory, with nothing to back it up, that some people who are injured all the time are subconsciously causing the problem. When you worry all the time about a problem, I think your body has the ability to want to fulfill your thoughts. After all, we all want to be right about what we think. Now, to be clear, I think this is a very small fraction of injuries, but I think it exists. When it comes to what we think and what we think we can do and what we think we can't do, I think our brains will often overcompensate and make sure that our thoughts are correct. I think that's why Henry Ford's quote is so accurate. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. So what's the answer? I think the answer is to look at everything with a neutral eye. When I gave up soft drinks a few years ago, I did it with the idea that I am open to whatever happens. Consequently, I gave up soft drinks, and I don't think it made any difference to the way I felt at all. That may come as a surprise to many people, but that was my experience. You may think that it turned out that way because I wanted it to turn out that way, but I would counter that with my diet. I decided to try a plant-based diet for 30 days. I was open even though I really thought it would make no difference. The result is that I'm still a plant-based eater years later now because I felt the difference. If you think you can't run a marathon, you're right and wrong. You probably can, but you have to be open to the possibility. So many people never try because their preconceived notion is that they can't do it. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't do anything if only we believe either. Like when I read a quote, when I read a quote like that, I cringe a little bit. We do have to be realistic. If you run your easy runs at 10-minute pace, you're not a candidate for running a sub 4-minute mile. You can believe all you want, but you will never be able to do it. All I'm saying is be open to possibilities. You can think whatever you want, just like I had a preconceived notion about a plant-based diet, but be open to the possibility that something could radically change your life, because it might. It did in my case. For us to get through to the non-believer, we must overcome preconceived notions. People hear that Christians are weak, gullible, and intellectually bankrupt. Who would want to be part of that? Do you want to know how I think we break through those preconceived notions? We live a life that shows the opposite. If someone thinks Christianity is for dumb people, then arm yourself with apologetic facts that may stir some thought in them. If they think Christianity is for weak people, explain why we are all weak and we all need God to overcome that weakness. But most importantly, live a life that shows the joy that comes from being a child of God. Nobody can look away from that. Risk homeostasis tells us that we will overcompensate for our preconceived notions, whether it is through our fitness journey or our Christian walk. Let yourself be open to reality. Be so open that your body starts craving tougher things because it wants to know where that limit is, and to be what God wants, what God has in store for you. We know it will be spectacular. And although being open to God is easier said than done, it is absolutely possible. And it's up to you, not him.
That's a great story, Dean. I know the sentiment of all that, but I've never heard it articulated that way. So good job.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Isn't that crazy about Sweden? They literally changed.
It is, but it's not surprising. I mean, to me, it's not, because I think you and I are kind of wired to the same way. We get these preconceived notions. We're in the business of trying to debunk a lot of preconceived notions. But yeah, it is. I didn't know that was actually a thing. I didn't know that actually happened.
Yeah.
That overnight why did they do that? What was the reason back then?
Well, it was because of the cars that were made, and that most of the countries around them had switched to.
So they drive.
So they were one of the few.
They drive on the right side of the road now.
Yes. And
Okay.
do you know why most countries drive on the right side of the road?
No.
Henry Ford.
Really?
Yes, because what happened?
Well, it makes sense.
This is great history. Yeah. So most countries drove on the left side of the road at the time, back in the 1700s, horse and buggy and all that. And of course, in England, they still drive on the left side of the road.
Oh, so it started with the horse and buggy.
Yes.
Okay. Because you started saying 1700s and they drove on the right side. I'm like, they didn't have cars back then.
Yeah, no, with a horse and buggy,
I got you.
They drove on the left side of the road, and that was the standard. Right?
Okay.
But then when the United States pulls away from Great Britain, it was like, we just want to be different. We don't want to be like them, so we're going to drive on the right side of the road. That's so American, isn't it? Yeah. So we're going to drive on the right side of the road. Well, where was the first mass-produced car that people could purchase? Was the Model T. Came from the United States. Mm-hmm. And so the Model T was sold all over the world. And so the Model T obviously has the steering wheel on the left side of the car, which needs to be driven on the right side of the road. And so because of the proliferation of the Model T, countries began changing their driving patterns to driving on the right side of the road. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, but I still don't understand why, because you made the statement, this may be a preconceived notion, you made the statement, the steering wheel is on the left side of the car, so it needs to be driven on the right side of the road. Why?
Because you're in the middle of the action, I guess. If you're on the edge, you're on the edge of the road. And
to me, that's not enough to make that change, though. Because I've driven a right-handed driver car.
Have you?
Here before, and it's not really that weird. Actually, it was a right-hand drive stick shift. So I was changing the gears with my left hand. That was weird.
Oh, I bet that was.
But driving on the right side of the car, I mean, mailmen do it all the time.
That's true. That's true.
It just takes getting used to. But yeah, that's a very interesting story.
Yeah. Well, that's not ultimately what the story is about, though.
Sure.
Part of the issue in Sweden was that people were obviously more careful because they expected accidents,
right.
And they lowered the speed limit too for a while until they got used to it. But we're always trying to make up for anything that we think is a problem. We're always trying to make up for it, and that's kind of what this is about. when it comes to running, we often see barriers that they're not even there, but we think they're there. I think it's why what I have found over the years for me is I tend to run better on a really hard course, not because I'm good at like hills or whatever is tough about that course, but because I don't let those preconceived notions affect me as much as other people do. So we're in our national championship, the one that I'm going to run this weekend. I tend to fare better among my peers whenever the course is tougher, because I think there's just some people who they kind of give up. When they know there's a lot of hills in that race, they just give up. And I can remember races where I remember the one when we were in Bend, Oregon. I mean, my time was awful, and I got through and I thought, oh, that was horrible. And then I looked at my place and I thought, well, I did really well because everybody did awful because it was a tough course. And I just don't let myself get swayed.
You just got more
that.
Grit than the other guys.
Well, maybe that too. I don't know. But it's important to believe that we can do things. But I think this is a little bit more than that. We have to be open to whatever actually happens. I really think that this is why, as I get older, I'm not slowing down as much as some other folks are, because a lot of people look at others and they go, well, I'm supposed to slow down right now. And my attitude is, I don't want to slow down right now.
Right.
And so now I've had to change the things I do. There's things I can't do that I used to be able to do. And I have to change the way I train. And there's a lot of things different about what I do. But I haven't slowed down as much as a lot of other folks because I just don't think I should.
Right.
And I think it's what we believe is so important. And then, of course, from a faith standpoint, I think it's partly us that needs to be open to the possibilities, and partly the person we're trying to share with. And what do I mean by that? We say that God can do anything, right? We say that all the time. Well, God can accomplish anything. What do our actions show? Do our actions actually show that we believe God can do anything? Or do our actions show in something, that we're hedging our bets? Because I think that if you want to get through to somebody who's a non-believer, well, they need to see you acting out your faith in a real way, and that doesn't show it if you're not all completely bought into that idea. Anyway,
I had you almost said the quote. This is one of those times where you're just, wow, something I said in the past just really resonated with somebody. There was a young lady who told me this past week that her senior quote, evidently they do senior quotes nowadays.
Yeah.
And her senior quote was, true boldness is putting your faith into action when the only thing you have to fall back on is what you claim to put your faith in.
Yep.
And that quote is kind of what you're talking about. Yeah. But I mean, man, that just set me back. Yeah, it really set me back in my chair that she used that. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's do we really believe that?
Yeah.
Do we really believe that our faith will sustain us? And we need to be bold about it.
Put your money where your mouth is, right?
Yeah.
Would you like to experience the Bible in a different way than you've ever done before? Well, you can join me, Coach Dean, as I read through the entire Bible every day for a full year. You don't want to miss hearing this transplanted Southern boy try to pronounce those biblical names now, do you? It may be good for a laugh. In addition, I share running and walking tips and some inspirational quotes along the way. Get your daily dose of the Bible from a runner's perspective in the Run for God Run Club, a walk through the Bible. You must be a member of the Run Club to get access. So if you're not a member, join today. If you are a member, just find a walk through the Bible under the Nationwide Challenge tab.
Every week I share a reason why running and or walking is so awesome. And this week it's this. It's good for your back. we dispel the myth all the time about how running, people talk about how it's bad for your knees. And we know that it's not. We know that it's actually good for your knees and therapeutic for your knees. But it's also good for your back, which I don't know that you would think about that with all the pounding. But in a 2020 report titled Long-Term Running in Middle-Aged Men and Intervertebral Disc Health, a cross-section pilot study says investigators looked at disc spacing in veteran runners versus non-runners. The finding? Middle-aged, long-term endurance runners exhibit less age-related decline in their lumbar intervertebral disc height. And the more years subjects had been running, the better their disc spacing looked. Likewise, for weekly mileage, more running was better. So running is actually good for your back and actually preserves the space between your discs. And you would think it's the exact opposite because we're pounding on it all the time, right?
Yeah, but pounding is what builds bone. I mean, that's pounding. We know that is good.
Yeah.
If you take a person and you lift them off the ground for 5 years and let them get no impact, their body's going to be a wreck.
That's true.
So, I mean, preconceived notions. Back to the point. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I just found this. I never heard it before. But it's good for your back just like it is for your knees.
That's why they say, and I can't cite the study, but I've heard this several times that the kids nowadays, their bones are more brittle because they're not out playing and being active as much and falling down and, falling off the monkey bars and getting thrown off the seesaw. And they're just not as active. And what you think is being hard on their body is actually good for their body.
Good for them. Yeah, that's a good point. The truth is being sedentary is not good for you.
No.
Yep. Well, I was reading an article by Alex Hutchinson. He's a very well-respected writer in the running and triathlon circles, and it revealed some interesting things to me. I'm sure that you've heard about elite athletes who take asthma medication, right?
They all have asthma for some reason.
Yes. Yeah, there's so many. 1 in 5 elite athletes has asthma.
Yeah.
Right? And so my thought has always been, man, this sounds shady, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that people are taking advantage of this. Well, it turns out that athletes training actually brings on this condition that requires medication. I did not know that. Apparently, when you train really hard in very cold air or very polluted air, it causes a restriction in your airways that necessitates this asthma medication. And I just never thought about that. Cold air, dry air is causing the problem. So, back when Alberto Salazar was coaching, I remember, hearing things about him, and he would take his athletes and have them go do a workout before they went in for this check about their asthma. And I thought, man, that sounds really, really shady. Well, it turns out that test actually gets a better reading when you've done a workout beforehand. So it actually was better.
Yeah.
All this stuff that sounded sketchy in the past, it sounds like now.
Yeah, I mean, it's exercise-induced asthma is what they call it.
Yeah.
And it's a real thing. There's something, we haven't figured out exactly what it is, but there's something goes on with Landon, when he runs and he really starts pushing, he can feel it coming on. Actually, at the state meet, one of his teammates that he was running with the first half, Jack, he described it to us. He said, I heard it coming on. Yeah. And then it was just, within a minute or two, Landon was off the back. Yeah. But it's a real thing, but I think we haven't gotten some parts of it are still not understood.
Yeah.
Because there's the vocal cord dysfunction, there's exercise-induced asthma, and it all has to do with either the lungs or the bronchial pathways getting constricted. And that can be from a stress reaction. It can be from cold air. And that's why, we keep telling Landon to relax. Yeah. Because we think that's part of what Landon's is. He gets so uptight and it starts constricting everything. But Landon, I don't know if he said this to you yet. I think he probably has. But he wants somebody to tell him, do this to relax.
Yeah.
he can't. But when he goes out, I mean, he went out and ran 10 miles yesterday at a really good pace, and he said, I felt great.
Yeah.
It's because there was no expectations. He was just out for a long run, and it felt great. So, yeah, there's a lot to still be learned, I think, in this, which is so hard to believe. As advanced as we are in medicine and the fact that we kind of know what it is, how do you fix it?
Yeah.
There's no good answer.
Yeah, it's interesting
on how to fix it.
Well, the World 24-Hour Championships were this weekend. Miho Nakata from Japan and Alexander Sorokin from Lithuania are the world champions. And this Miho, she set a world record for 24 hours. She ran 270 kilometers, which is, I want to say, 167 miles. And then Sorokin ran over 180 miles. He ran over 300 kilometers. I think it was 301 kilometers. So that was, I still can't imagine running that far in 24 hours. And then I thought it was interesting that the women's team competition, I didn't realize I had team competitions in this, but Poland was first for women, and then Japan, and then Czech Republic. And then on the men's side, it was Lithuania, and then Poland, and then Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I thought that was, there's no United States in here at all. There's no African nations in here at all. It's all European, and then, of course, Japan, which Japan doesn't surprise me at all. The endurance bases that all of those folks are building. But I thought it was interesting that Poland is so strong in the ultramarathon world. I didn't know that. Well, Joshua Cheptegei, did you know that he was running a marathon this week?
I didn't. I saw this in your notes. I was curious. How did that go?
He was 37th.
Wow.
Yeah. But listen, he was 37th. He ran 209 or 208.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's how fast it is in Valencia now. It was the Valencia Marathon, and we had the fourth guy under 202 in this race. Sisay Lema. Been around for a while. He's an Ethiopian guy. Ran a 201.30 something, I think it was. So he's now the fourth fastest guy of all time.
When is the Olympic trials?
It's in January, I think.
Okay.
January or February.
It's kind of surprising that there's a race of this caliber that close to.
Well, that's the United States.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
Yeah, other.
But I would think everybody's is sometime around. Is that not the case?
No.
Okay.
No, they all do it differently. Some countries, they don't have Olympic trials. They just choose their team.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, every country's different in how they do it. So some of them will be like the United States, and we'll have the race somewhere around the same time as us. Some of them will have it much closer to Olympic time. We used to have it closer to Olympic time. That's just a recent thing where we've had it in, almost a year out.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, we have a trivia question for this week. This one is interesting. There are events that take place in parks and other venues where they are timed, but there is no entry fee, no awards, and they are held weekly. What are these events called? Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I know the name.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm dead wrong, but
well, it's a pretty cool thing. I like the concept. I remember back years ago when Tom Sell, he was the coach of the Northwest cross country team, and during the summer every week on Tuesday evening he had a race at Edwards Park, and
it had this title.
It didn't have this title though, but it was cool because it was like no frills. There were no awards. There wasn't.
Okay, then I'm wrong because I thought it was no frills.
Huh?
I thought it was no frills.
No, it's not called no frills. No,
okay.
No, it's not called no frills.
So the answer is not no frills.
That is
That's
right.
a hint.
It is correct that is not the answer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, your motivational thought of the
wait a
week.
minute. Submit your answer.
Oh, yes.
And you'll get $20 into the Run for God store.
Right.
I saw one of those come through yesterday.
Yeah.
I saw the $20 discount come through, and I know that was somebody that got the answer.
That's right. Very good. Our motivational thought of this week is from John C. Maxwell. He's one of those leadership guys.
Sure.
I love John Maxwell. He's a cool guy. And he said, dreams don't work unless you do.
Love that quote.
Isn't that great?
So true.
Don't be surprised when reaching your goal is hard. It's supposed to be hard. And that's part of the beauty of it.
Sure.
Right? That's part of what makes the goal worthwhile, is the fact that it's hard. So if it's hard to get out there and get it done, good. It's supposed to be. Now get out there and conquer it, right? All right. Until next week, may God bless every step of every run and or walk. Go out there and shine your light.
Good job, Dean.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.